We begin with,
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be a bit of undigested beef.
Data Scrooge. No, actually, better not call him that. Data Scrooge sounds like some kind of file corruption. I gotta call in the Geek Squad. I got a case of Data Scrooge here. Picard is watching and is very impressed by Data's performance, and it leads into a discussion of acting and how Data is applying it to his pursuit of being more human. By learning to emulate emotions, he's one step closer to understanding and maybe even experiencing them. If only he knew that it would require a hardware upgrade. Well, the fun is interrupted by a signal from a science station on Ventax 2, and they say that they're in big trouble, so Enterprise hauls ass heading over there to figure out why they're under attack by an angry mob.
Dr. Clark, this is Captain Picard. We're ready to beam you and your team on board.
Up, I see the angry mob has arrived. If only our tax refunds arrived so quickly.
Number one. Try and make some sense out of this mess.
I think he said the same thing about the script for Generations. They manage to beam the head researcher up, but the rest of them get left behind. There's too much crap happening down there, so it's down to him to explain everything. Apparently, the locals developed advanced technology at one point. Then 1,000 years ago, they gave it all up and returned to an agrarian society, actively shunning advanced technology when it's been offered to them. Everything has seemed perfect for these rural people because, of course, Michael Piller is involved. So it's inexplicable why they suddenly flipped their lid.
Jared, the Ventaxian head of state, began to grow increasingly obsessed with the legend of Ardra. With each passing day, he grew more anxious and he talked about little else. Ardra is coming back. Ardra will be here soon.
It's not too late for tickets to Ardra, the off-Broadway hit coming to the downtown theater this Saturday.
Captain, these people actually believe they've sold their souls to the devil.
Record to Captain Picard.
There's someone called Mephisto here who wants to know how you feel about not being married to Beverly Crusher. Do you have any idea what he's talking about? The leader of the locals calls up to apologize about the science team that's being held hostage, but says there's not a whole lot he can do about it. Ardra is definitely coming, and everyone is freaking the hell out. Picard says that if they just release the hostages, the Federation will offer assistance in dealing with Ardra, but they don't think that's going to help much. In the conference room, Data explains that 1,000 years ago, Ardra offered 1,000 years of peace and prosperity, but was going to come back to enslave them all when it was over. I suppose we really shouldn't be surprised. Politicians always put the disaster off until they're well out of office. Picard figures this will require his personal intervention and brings along Worf and Data in case things get rough, O'Brien on transporters in case he needs a quick exit, and Troy on hand to tell him whether or not people screaming in horror are terrified. Picard tries to put their minds at ease that these aren't serious quakes, and certainly not the work of Ardra, but then... Speak of the devil. Thank you. Jared, the leader of these yahoos, does his best not to piss himself as he talks to her, and when she seems to be a less harsh demon than the reputation suggests, quickly acquiesces to her demands. And yeah, she claims to be the devil. All the incarnations, actually.
The Klingons call me Feklar.
You are not Feklar.
But I am.
Come on, John Lovett's made a more terrifying Satan.
No doubt you have traveled the galaxy, encountered a diverse universe of creatures. Is there no room for the likes of me?
I've encountered many who are more credibly to be called the devil than you.
I sure wouldn't want to be in the shoes of whoever he just insulted. The contract's brought out, and Picard asks if Data can go over it to make sure that it's all in order. And Ardra not only allows it, but orders that the hostages are to be released at once. But Picard doesn't react with gratitude.
I refuse to abandon this planet to that woman.
I wonder where this all falls in light of the Prime Directive. They seem like they would by definition have to be a pre-warp society because they're agrarian. I mean, I don't care how vegan you are, you can't use soy as a substitute for antimatter. But I guess they're, considered grandfathered in because the Klingons had already made contact here a long time ago, so if they already know, then maybe it doesn't count. I don't know. But even if you factor that in, then wouldn't this really be considered an internal matter? I mean, unless you said that Ardris must be from another planet. But even then, it's not really involving the Federation in any way. Should the Federation get involved? Does the Prime Directive prevent that? I don't know. All I'm guessing is that Picard sees something similar to what happened in Who Watches the Watchers and is just hoping maybe he can get through it without getting shot by an arrow again. On the Enterprise, they raise the natural question of whether or not this is Q, or a member of the Q continuum, but Picard doubts it. The things that they saw are stuff that could be explained with existing technology just being applied differently, like a transporter but just works really, really fast or something. He thinks that she's nothing but a flim-flam artist, but Troy says that she couldn't read anything off of Ardra. Who knows what she could be thinking? Except maybe that she really wants to annoy Picard. He tells Worf to deal with her. Well, come on, that's Worf. That doesn't prove a damn thing. Picard finally just beams her away.
Ensign, put up the shields until further notice.
Yes, sir, Captain.
Good. Glad someone's listening around here. Before he can throw her off again, Data arrives to say that the contract is legitimate.
When the contract came to term, I gained clear title to the planet. Anything on the surface, in the air, or in orbit. So you see, the Enterprise belongs to me now as well.
Well, certainly not in that sense is it legal. You can't offer something in a contract that's not actually yours to offer. If I sell you my house and everything on the lot, then you don't get to take control of the moving van that's there just because it's still in the driveway when you show up. I think that U-Haul might have something to say about that. Well, claiming the Enterprise and all aboard is the final straw. Picard is going to expose her as a con artist one way or another. That Ardra was either a deliberate invention or distortion of an actual event. But that either way, it led for the people themselves to change their society for the better. Now this woman is trying to take advantage of the social anxiety around Ardra now that the contract is due. Picard wants to expose her. So he wants to know if there's any legal loopholes in the contract. Or, any legal precedents that could be used to challenge it. Though I do have to point out the case of Faust V, the Lord of all Worms, shows that that's an uphill battle. Picard awakens that night with Ardra appearing in his quarters to mess with his head, and all the systems have been shut down to keep them isolated.
Or would your fantasies turn more toward a professional woman? One perhaps who wears a Starfleet uniform? Perhaps I could even be
someone close at hand, yet unattainable.
Oh, swing and a miss! Annoyed at being snubbed, she dumps Picard down on the planet and disables their transporters, forcing Data to retrieve him in a shuttle, and bringing along some clothes. Lucky thing he wasn't wearing his Superman pajamas that night. It does give Data the chance to say that he's found something that might help, that when an alien was involved, a dispute was resolved by arbitration rather than by the courts. This could be their way to unravel the whole thing.
Prepare for docking sequence.
Proceed, Shuttle 1.
Damn it, the special effects budget ran out again. They head back to their outpost to try to find the Enterprise, but there's no sign of it. Geordi, still on the planet, says there was a burst of Z particles at the same time that might show how this had happened, except there's no time to discuss that because Ardra shows up to gloat. Well, Picard isn't going to wear that. He calls her a fraud to her face and points out that the ability to make illusions does not make you the devil. Certainly Mysterio has established that fact. She doesn't want to go along with the arbitration, and since possession is 9/10 of the law, having the Enterprise means that she doesn't need to. So Picard sweetens the deal. A rare gem. But it's not enough. She wants Picard's willing service going forward, and he is confident enough to go along with it. She wants Data to serve as the arbitrator, but he's hesitant since by his nature, he can't be biased if given a role requiring unbiased behavior. But Picard actually likes the idea since Data is impossible to intimidate. And even a skeptic wouldn't want to wind up on the devil's shit list.
Congratulations. You are now the owner of 500,000 shares of Fireflies Incorporated.
So they get down to business. Jared explains the history of how things sucked until Ardra came, but Picard objects on the grounds that there is no proof the person who arrived is the person in the court today.
Jared, in the contract, does it specify how you would know me when I return?
Yes, by the date.
Just like with the Mayans. But even accepting her as the one, Picard says there's no proof that she was responsible for the changes that came to their society. So she wants to turn things around and question him for a little while. Except it's really just a chance to show off, making earthquakes, making Picard disappear, transforming into Lucifer just for kicks, and pointing out that for all his vague theories, Picard can't actually explain how she does things. It's one thing to say, oh, it's all just done with technology, but I suppose just saying that without specifics then leaves the door open for Ardra to claim that the technology also allows her to be thousands of years old and be able to bring about peace and prosperity. Who knows? There's no part of the contract that specifies she can only do it with supernatural power, after all. If you sell your soul for $1 billion, and the devil then hacks every bank in America to transfer a few $100 into your account, is it really much different than having a big pile of money just appear in the living room? After all, what are you going to say? I didn't think the devil could use the internet? He's just going to laugh heartily, point at your inbox and say, look at all that spam and tell me that the devil is not on the internet. Well, rallying, Picard does say that the history shows no direct connection between Ardra and the events, that the changes were gradual and occurred without her direct involvement in any form.
Well, then, let's move on to the environmental gains on Ventax 2. How were they accomplished?
We shifted our economy from an industrial to an agrarian base.
So how do you maintain a planetary government anyway, with a whole lot of soup cans and string? Anyway, whatever Picard thinks, Jared believes that Ardra was responsible, and the opinion of their leader, well, former leader now, does carry a bit of weight. It looks bad, but Geordi shows up with some news. We'd seen that he'd found some quarters before that looked interesting, and sure enough, Ardra's ship is there, cloaked, and the Enterprise is just cloaked too, and surrounded by a dampening field so that they can't figure it out. So when the recess is concluded, Picard comes back, throws out a bunch of sarcasm about Ardra's great powers, and then duplicates all of the ones that she had done. This is actually using all the technology found on her ship, because after all that, Picard wants to fuck with her a little bit before revealing that the jig is up. Not only has he found out what her powers are and how to use her technology against them, rather cobbled together technology at that, but also has found proof that she's a known confidence artist. She gets hauled off for whatever justice the locals have, and Picard and Data leave in triumph, and to hopefully make sure that they didn't accidentally kill anybody with the earthquakes they made just to prove a point. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to the thoroughly unimpressive Klingon Devil. So much obvious effort clearly gone to waste. Devil's Due is a polarizing episode, but I'm giving it a score of 6 out of 10. There are certainly gaps in the story like Ardra's motivations around Picard, but it's an episode that moves smoothly and doesn't get distracted. This was an episode that was meant for Kirk and Company, actually, reworked for TNG, then reworked again, and then a whole slew of people had to revise it because it had been turned into a comedy, and I guess that upset people, I guess. It also has a strangely dated feel to it. I'm not sure why. I mean, we're in season 4, yet somehow it feels like they should all be wearing those collarless spandex outfits. But, hey, I'll take this episode over a lot of those other spandex outfit episodes, let me tell you.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
The advocate will refrain from making her opponent disappear.